pesky mosquitoes. Hey, it's Radar here, day 141. We stayed at Flagstaff Pond last night, which you could see in the previous video. Beautiful place. It rained on us though. That's always, sometimes you welcome it and sometimes you don't, but it wasn't a big deal. It rained last night, all night long, and sometimes it was hard rain, but we stayed nice and dry in the Z-Pax duplex, which has become a very, very trusted companion on this through hike. Perhaps, and I haven't gone through and really thought about it, but it could be the best piece of gear that we own. That's a real, so think about that. That's a $600 tent, and I don't think I'd have ever paid $600 for a tent, because I just, man, how many times have you got burned when you spent a ton of money on something? We can talk about that later too. But that tent has been worth every penny. And it stopped raining this morning at about 8 o'clock, and we were on trail by 8:40. If you've watched us before in the rain, you know that we wait out the rain. It's just, it becomes a big process to dry your stuff out, to clean all your little bits and pieces, clean out the inside of your backpack from things that are wet and then they get dirty when you're packing them up. So we just say, you know what, we'll wait another hour in the morning, or we'll stop hiking an hour early, or we'll shelter in the middle of the day for a couple hours when the rain passes, and then save ourselves the trouble of slipping all over everything and the trouble of the big dry out and sometimes the extra cleaning that you have to do to your gear. Take care of your gear, folks. That's a piece of advice that not a lot of people hear today. Maintenance. I used to be a maintenance man. I think there's a country music song that said, no high maintenance woman would ever fall for a maintenance man. And that is not true. High maintenance women love guys that can do all their maintenance, it turns out. Am I speaking from experience? Probably not. So, yesterday I talked about a nice, easy beginner hike in Pennsylvania and Maryland, starting out of Harper's Ferry and heading north. Today, and I wanted to talk about other things yesterday, but I just got caught up in the bugs, and it was beautiful hiking. So, I didn't do it. But in my final, since we're coming to the end of the trail here, I'm just wrapping up some thoughts. And today I wanted to talk about section hikers. And again, this is another piece of the accessibility series. If that's what you want to call it. I'll call it the accessibility series on through hiking, hiking the Appalachian Trail in general. I think that when you and I think of hikers, the protagonist is the through hiker on the AT, especially for the AT. And you associate the Appalachian Trail with people who are putting aside 6 months of their lives and looking for some kind of profound significance to that time of their lives by torturing themselves on the AT. Maybe that's not the romantic thought. They're not torturing themselves. They're like gnomes. You're sending them out to travel, and you're putting your dreams on these hikers. And I get that feeling a lot from the blogs that I read, and just general comments that people make about thru hikers when I meet them. They're kind of a romanticized group, and hiking the AT, I mean, this has just been a legendary trail for us here in the United States. It's changed the way that people think about hiking, especially as it's become more popular in the last several years. Not that it wasn't popular before with the outdoor world or the hiking and backpacking world, but it certainly is general household terminology at this point to some degree. So, but to me, the heroes, and this is, I'm not saying the protagonist, I'm saying the hero to me of the Appalachian Trail is the section hiker. I've got more respect for people who section hike than for a lot of attempted thru hikers. Some thru hikers, you know how that can be. Section hiking is when you tackle this project of hiking the AT in one section at a time. And they could be big sections, they could be lots of small sections. You could try to do it in a year in sections, or you could try to do it in 5 years or 20 years. And I just want to give a few examples of some section hikers that I've got a ton of respect for. And the dedication it's just that long-term commitment and dedication. And actually it's a passion and a love that section hikers have that I think a lot of thru hikers do not have. A lot of thru hikers are people who some of them have just made a split-second decision, or they've thought about it a couple times and they've taken a shot, and some of them are successful at finishing the hike, and some of them finish, or they're just, they're a lash, which is LASH, a long ass section hiker, or whatever. And that happens, or you get hurt, or things happen and you have to get off trail. But section hiking is really an important consideration if you're trying to figure out how to gain access to the trail and really get the experience and get the experience of what it is to be a backpacker, a thru hiker, etc., etc. I think section hiking is the way to go. So let's talk about a few different ways to section hike. And I'll just use some examples of people I know. First and foremost, let's talk about the lash. That's the long ass section hiker. Sometimes people get injured on the trail, or they have to get off trail, or they only have 2 or 3 months to hike, or 4 months, and they do 1,000 miles or something. So they do a long section, and they come back later and they finish up their other long section later. We had a friend named Mystic, and she did 700 miles, I believe it was 2 years ago, 700 miles this year, and then she's going to do 700 miles or 800 miles next year to finish up the trail. And she gives herself something like 10 to 12 weeks on trail at a time. So she makes that time every year and does it that way. So that's one way to section hike. And she's doing it, I believe she's doing it in a row. So she's starting from the south. This year she did the middle. Next year she's going to do the north section. So that's one section hiker. Another section hiker I met just recently, her trail name was Tree Cycle. I think her name is Teresa, and she goes by Tree Cycle. And she said that she's been section hiking almost every year for 1 month a year since 2008. And this is her last year of section hiking. And that's what I'm talking about. She said 1 year or 2 years she couldn't come out. And she's out here with her dad. And they do 4 weeks at a time, which gives them, could give them 200, depending on the section, 200 to 400 miles per section. So that's another section hiker. Another couple guys we met, Gus and Gus and Dad Decisions. They're brothers from North Carolina. They have kids, they have businesses, they've got a lot of responsibility in life. They take off 10 days a year, I believe is what it was, and they do a 10-day hike every year. And I think they are northbound. I think they're a traditional northbound where they're just going to go north, section to section all the way north. It sounds like the rain's coming or just the wind. Another section hiker, and he's actually going to qualify, I think this year as a through hiker that we met, was Blazes of Glory. And his method of section hiking is he works like 2 days a week, and then he travels to the trail and hikes small sections for like 3 days at a time. And I mean, I think he said to us that he's going to actually finish up a whole through hike within the year. And a through hike by the ATC definition is when you finish the whole trail within 1 year. So those are some of the forms of section hikers. In Southern Virginia, we met a lot of the section hikers that would do 10-day sections. And these people, we spent a lot of time with a lot of them, just hiking alongside of them or sheltering with them and camping near them in the evenings. And the reason why I say, to me, they're kind of my heroes is because they have figured out a way to actually continue to grow in their backpacking and in their through hiking year by year, and still maintain things like their families, and they're not just and keep jobs. Obviously that's super important to all of us, make sure we stay employed, and that and the other side of it too is just that long-term commitment. That's something that to see like that Tree Cycle lady who's been at it since 2008, and they're just finishing this year. And I met another guy who's been at it for 15 years, and I think this is his capstone year as well. That's just all really impressive. And they have a lot of really these folks, when you hike with them as a through hiker, they have fantastic insights on the trail, and they could tell you about areas that you haven't been, that they've been. Because sometimes you can only section what you can afford physically and financially. So, different parts of the trail cost more money. If you live in the north, it's going to cost you more to go down south, and vice versa. Anyway, things to consider if you're sitting there by the fireplace in January, and you're saying, man, I'd love to get out on trail, I just don't know how to do it. The other thing too, section hiking gives you the ability to try out different pieces of gear and really kind of dial yourself in over time. And you don't have to have the newest and best gear every year. Revolutionary pieces of gear only come out every so often. For example, the backpack that I have on, this came out in 2014. It's a 2014 model, and I've done 2,000 plus miles on it. The shoes I'm wearing are a 2016 pair of shoes, and is it 2019? It's 2019. The duplex tent, like that, I don't know, that's been out for several years, so you can get, as the years go on, you can get great pieces of gear. I was using the Snow Peak self-igniting 3-ounce burner, and that thing was awesome. It's windproof. You can set it up out in the wind and it'll never blow out, but at the same time, if it's really windy, it'll never heat up your food. But that being said, I got that as a wedding gift back in 2011, and it was a great piece of gear, light enough for me, and super durable, did its job. So that's the other thing about section hiking too, is that you can really dial in your parts and pieces, and maybe when you're all done with the section, you want to go do something like a bigger trail like the Colorado Trail, or just do be a lash somewhere. You're essentially more experienced than most of the people that are through hikers. So things to think about, and hopefully we'll see what we're going to talk about tomorrow. But yeah, these are just things that have been, these things that I'm talking about right now are just kind of things that I learned. I didn't know anything. I knew about section hiking, but I didn't know the methods of doing it. And I've hopefully you've seen some of the methods. So, you know, rewatch this if you're seriously considering it in the future. And ask questions too, and I can address them in the future as well. Peace. In the Kennebec River, and there's our ferry to come to go take us across. There's Smash.
Yeah, we're going to wind up at the trailhead. The current will take us down. Well, it turned into a nice night after all that rain today. Yeah. I got soaked I don't know how many times.
It just moves in so quick.
Yep. Well, it looked like it was going to clear up a couple times. It took my dogs out. We weren't even out 10 minutes in the pouring rain. I had to cancel that walk, came back in, tried it again. I finally quit trying. I just left the front door open and let them come and go. And they were never out more than 5 minutes at a time before they came running in, storming again.
It is beautiful out here.
It is really nice. Now that the sun's coming out.
So is there camping over here?
No, that's just like a covered picnic table to sit and wait. A little hut for waiting. Yeah. And there's a high-tech greenhouse on the outhouse up there too.
Oh, interesting.
So people have tried to ford this?
Yep. We lost a hiker this spring.
Oh boy.
Got in, and when they do let the currents out unannounced, the water rises so fast. What happened? He got tangled in his harness.
Backpack.
Yeah, in the harness of it. He couldn't undo it because he was fighting to stay afloat, you know. And he drowned.
What is it that lets is it a dam?
There's 2 dams up ahead, and when they release them both together, it wreaks havoc. It'll climb right up to the top and see where the rocks are.
Oh, wow.
It'll climb right up there. But one at a time, you can handle it. But when they release 2, and that's usually after like a lot of rain.
How deep is this?
In the middle, on the average, about 10 feet. Right here is probably 6.
Jeez.
And then inland, you know, you get towards a lot of rock and stuff, so that it gets shallow real quick.
Just like that, Cheryl is off.
Yeah, okay, it's good.
This is the town of Caratunk. This is all of the town of Caratunk. It's pretty awesome. You can just walk right down the center of the street because nobody uses the town.
I should use that portal, John.
We all should. You going over there?